there. We are talking about writing assessment questions. Now, you might be a student, and in one of my classes where we do open curriculum writing, so you're writing questions for other students, and which is a great thing to do because then you really learn how to answer the questions too. Or you might be a faculty, an instructor that is writing questions that are questions that would foster more critical thinking, questions that might allow the student to include their voice, their perspective, more than questions written by publishers. So that's what this is about. And a couple keys for success. Trust me, I am always learning about these. The more clear I can be on a question, the less trouble it will be for me as the person that has to assess. So I want to be clear. I want to be as clear as possible. And so on your sheet that you have in front of you, it says clarity, compare the two questions below. And the first one just says contrast allele, genotype, and gene locus. It doesn't matter what your topic is, right? I just have 3 terms here. Well, now the student, who knows what the student thinks what the word compare means, right? Like who knows what people, everybody feels differently about this word compare, right? So the more information that you can give, the more clear you can be about what it is that you're asking for, the better the answer is going to be, because otherwise the student, or they have no idea what you're trying to ask for, right? They can't read our minds. So contrast, the next one down, contrast allele, genotype, and gene locus, what is similar, dissimilar between them? Is one a part of the other? Please compare in addition to defining each term in your own words. Now you're saying, hey, not just a definition, but also, are they alike? Are they dissimilar? Are they similar? So that's really great. So what are your expectations? What is, and being clear. The expectations piece is next. And so make sure you let them know, how many sentences should this be? Now, a lot of people are going to write more than what you suggest, but how can this be done? Can this be done in 3 fragments or 3 sentences? And I also would suggest that if you're not in literature or English or an area where grammar really matters, if you're like me and you're in a science class, I don't worry. Bullet points are fine. I don't need punctuation. I don't care about your grammar. I want your words in your own way of describing it. I don't want a textbook. I don't want a quote. I want you to describe it to me. And I would even consider, would ask you to consider using slang. Now, I don't mean, like profanity, but there might be a fun way to explain, plasmodesmata, like it's just like big holes through the cell, big protein holes through the cells, just allowing folks to use their own voice on your answers is a really powerful and confidence building exercise. Okay. So the next idea is that getting past what type of questions, going on to what and which are sort of beginning questions and memorization questions, and going beyond that into questions that require a little more critical thinking, a little more learning. Why not learn on an assessment? So how and why questions are great. And so you can have multiple questions where you might have a where, which is usually just anatomy or a spot, but follow it up with other questions that are deeper thinking. So what innovations, adaptations enable gymnosperms to colonize land? And then use 3 sentences, fragments, to answer with the points. So I'm being clear, I'm letting you know about how long it might take, and I'm also asking, this is actually a what question, isn't it? So I'm not asking a why on that one, but the follow-up question, what innovations did angiosperms have that allowed them to compete with gymnosperms? Please come up with 3 of these. So it is actually a thoughtful question because there were many innovations that might be answered here. Use 3 sentences, fragments. I'm looking to see what. Okay, so I used a different question on the sheet that you're looking at, and this one is basically a person is listening to a song on the radio in a language they fluently understand. Please answer the questions below. The first one is a which question, so super simple. Which lobe is this information travel to first from the thalamus? That's a very simple question. Next one, what is the function of this area? A little bit higher up, I'm requiring a function is next. Please use two. Next one is Next one is, in order for a person to interpret the song, there are at least 2 more areas in the cerebrum that are needed. Please list these and their functions. A little bit more. Next, what if the person wants to sing along? So now I'm asking for something even beyond really stepping outside of their comfort zone and a place where people might have slightly different answers. What are 3 more areas that would be involved in the process of deciding to sing and then using skeletal muscle to sing the song? List the areas and why you believe they are needed, at least for 3 fragments and 10 points. So really adding in those why questions and how questions and why do you think so questions and allowing them to have their voice. Okay, compare and contrast. Oh my goodness, compare and contrast are so great. So I highly recommend on homework creating homeworks where there are terms that are being contrasted all the time. So on the homework have, I think I gave up, I said something about compare and contrast. Let's see here. But 3 terms, succession, primary succession, secondary succession, and population or ecosystem. Have them compare a bunch of terms, and then on the assessment, compare different terms that were not on the homework, but maybe not, word for word. So different terms, use different terms, pick them out. This is such a great way to learn. So compare the functions of the premotor cortex, the primary auditory cortex, and the basal nuclei. They're not areas that you would typically see together in a spot. Are they part of, similar, dissimilar? How are they similar? Use 3 fragments or more, 7 points, and remember to go beyond a definition for each. So I'm trying to be clear. I'm trying to give you the expectation. This is how many points it's worth. Another type of question for more of a math style. This is a Punnett square. This is a genetics question. Draw a Punnett square of a cross between a heterozygous black lab and a chocolate lab. And then just, it's very route. List the types, list the phenotypic group ratios of, that's question 2. Question 3, if you are a breeder and you need to produce mostly black labs based on demand, what cross would you do next and why? And answer with a few fragments. So now, even with a question that's very correct or incorrect, you're actually allowing the student to have a little bit of voice. What would they do? Maybe they're going to do something different than somebody else in terms of their cross or in terms of what they're thinking in future crosses. To cover lots of material, often we use multiple choice questions. But one way you can do it is to do the fix and rewrite method. And so you're going to write a statement, and then the student needs to rewrite the statement. Now, the statement may be true or may be false, but either way, they have to rewrite it. So here's this first statement. Nadaria and periphery have 2 tissues. Now, this is incorrect. And so they need to rewrite it and make it okay, make it correct. And so this is a nice way to cover a lot of material, but also still giving your student freedom to express themselves with words. Now, they're still going to have to express themselves in terms of Nadaria and periphery and tissues, right? But they might have a different way of writing it. So periphery don't have tissues at all. And Nadaria do. They're both animals. I don't know, something along those lines where they're fixing it and giving you some information. Now, if it's a true statement, they probably won't write that much more, and that's fine. This particular one here, they might just write the sentence out, or they might write it in a different way. I know that gymnosperms have cones, and I believe they're both male and female. It's great that the student is letting you know that they know that information, and they've been thinking about it. Elevate your bloom. So think about how to make the questions, at least a few of the questions, relevant to the student, relevant to where they grew up, relevant to the area that you live in, relevant to something they've learned in the class. So this one is about, we didn't necessarily talk about coyotes, but we certainly talked about this order in our class. And so I'm going to apply coyotes to this order. Okay, and why, and then I'm going to ask them about why do you think they should be included in the group. So this is there's going to be a lot of different answers, but this is a why question. They need to have knowledge from the class, but they get to express themselves. Yay! Again, being clear, 7 points, 3 or 4 fragments. Try to use some terms from our class. On your sheet, I also talked about sort of making it, the suggestion I had was more of a relevance question, something about primary and secondary succession, and how, and relate that to human caused disturbances in the Pacific Northwest, or where you were born, or where you grew up. Applying that to their life is a really great thing. So in their opinion, what's going on with succession? You could bring up wildfires, the wildfires that happen here, or something that they have interest in. Okay. And I guess the last piece is that we need to remember why we're here. So we're here because we want them, we want to make sure that they have some mastery of the material, right? Like, that's why we wake up every day. We're really excited about the material and we hope that they will get to be as well. But the other piece is learning how they learn, right? Are they learning? And how do we know if they're learning? This is a really hard thing to assess, right? Assessment is really tricky. How can we find out if they're learning? And are they actually even learning on the assessment? And I believe that when we have a lot of these opinion type questions, relevant questions, questions where they have to fix statements, I think they're actually learning during the process. The other piece, remember, they want to use their voice. We're going to create a whole generation of folks that are way more confident when they use their voice rather than picking an answer out of a string of multiple choice. They're going to feel empowered, and that's really what we want to do, right? We want to empower students. So creating tests that are more open, and then I guess the next video would be about open pedagogy and maybe thinking about allowing your students to write some of the exam questions together, maybe in a Google Doc. And so that's something I've been exploring lately too. So really opening it up. You don't have to have them write all the answers, but you can certainly have them write a lot of questions. And using some of those questions on exams, students are super resilient, so smart, and they can write great questions. So that's the next topic. Have a great day.